Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this exciting webinar. I'm actually very excited about this topic and this session today. So just a quick little bit of background on this guide and why we're here today. So as is no surprise to many of you probably on this webinar, many of our members had said over the past year that they really needed some help understanding how to effectively implement AI within their organizations. We had done a lot of work at ITS America on policy principles around AI, on use cases around AI that was helpful, but members were looking for something more tangible, something that would really help them understand how do I implement this in my organization, not just perhaps, implement a use case in my traffic management system or in another area of my organization or my business. So we worked over the past year with our member experts in our AI working group and our partners over at Cambridge Consultants to develop this guide. And then in late March at our policy summit this year, we released this guide along with Cambridge Consultants. We're very excited about the guide. It's designed to equip transportation organizations with clear and actionable steps for successfully implementing AI. It looks at the interplay of processes, people, technology, and data, and shows how different organizational functions have to work in unison to develop and execute a cohesive AI strategy. Rebecca Middleton, who I'll introduce in a moment, is going to talk a lot about the guide, but it's important to know that no matter where you are within the organization, it likely covers your area. It covers three different functional areas: the executive function, operational function, and delivery function. And it includes a 10-point action plan for how you can get started and what you can do. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the three speakers. We're going to start with Rebecca, and then we're actually going to go over to two of our state representatives, who I'll introduce in just a moment, who are going to talk a little bit about their experience in implementing AI within their state agencies. And then we're going to have a moderated discussion and opportunity for Q&A. If you would like to ask a question, please put it into the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. And once we get to that discussion portion, we will make sure that we include some of the audience questions. So first, I'm going to introduce Rebecca Middleton. She's an AI assurance specialist with Cambridge Consultants, focused on securing complex and sensitive areas. She has led assurance work on some of the UK government's most high-profile defense systems and is currently working with ITS America to support our AI and data assurance work in the transportation sector. With a background in psychology and strong knowledge in regulatory compliance and risk within AI technologies, Rebecca is known for her ability to bring clarity to complex problems, align diverse stakeholders, and deliver practical, secure, robust assurance frameworks for emerging technologies. Next, I'm going to introduce Dara Wheeler, who is the brand new Chief Data and Artificial Intelligence Officer for Caltrans. This is important to note because this is the first ever of this position in a state DOT. So congratulations to Dara, congratulations to Caltrans. She also serves as co-chair of the ITS America Workforce Development Community of Practice. Many of you know Dara. Prior to her role as the new Caltrans CDAO, she managed the research and innovation program at Caltrans. She's also served as the chief of staff and spent time in rail and transit planning, transportation planning programs, and has worked for two California governors. Dara also serves in a number of national leadership positions, both at AASHTO and at ITS America. And then we also have Darran Anderson, who is very familiar to many of you. Darran is the Director of Strategy and Innovation for TxDOT. He's responsible for TxDOT's strategic innovation, emerging technology, and research initiatives, performance analytics, and enterprise initiatives. He oversees the strategic initiatives and innovation and research and technology implementation divisions. That's a mouthful and also a large workload for Darran. Darran serves on many committees, advisory groups, and communities of practice in national organizations, including ITS America, where he has previously led our Emerging Technologies Committee and served in a number of roles in our leadership amongst our members, covering intelligent transportation systems, cooperative and automated transportation, and other emerging technologies. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our panelists, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Laura, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here today. And say I'm going to be walking you through the ITS America AI Implementation Guide. And actually, it really feels like quite a timely moment to be doing this and to be having this conversation. So, AI has been part of our awareness now for quite a while, but many organizations are still struggling with ways to move forward with it, knowing what to do next, knowing how to scale up, how to implement. And that's exactly what this guide is for. And this is where it's really, really useful. Now, I could be here for a couple of hours going through the whole guide. So I know I've only got a short period of time. So I'm going to focus on three key areas. And that is the roles required to lead the AI implementation, the maturity model, which outlines the stages of AI maturity, and the 10-point action plan, which provides a really clear roadmap to walk you through your AI implementation. So we're going to start with the who. These are your core functional roles. They are the people that are going to be implementing AI and rolling it out successfully. Now, it seems strange thinking about people when you're talking about AI, but actually they are who is going to make this successful for you and for your organization. And the ITS America Guide breaks this down into three core functional groups that Laura just mentioned. So that is your executive function, which is your leadership, your operational functions. So that's like your project management, your governance, your kind of core business units, and then the delivery function. And your delivery function are the actual implementers. They're going to be your AI developers, engineers, software engineers. So to start with, I'll give an overview of the executive function. This is your leadership layer. They are the people that are really going to be setting that strategic direction for you. Now, you might be thinking, like, what level of tech expertise do we need to have if we're going to be setting this vision? And to be honest, you will need some level of AI literacy. It's something that you're going to need to have in place for you to be able to understand the challenges and understand the risks. Just a basic level, but enough for you to be able to understand. The guide gives you some good starting ground for that. It gives you some good challenges to think about and some good risks. And another resource that might be quite useful is a Coursera course called AI for Everyone, really good for those fundamentals. And this is where you can start to draw upon your wider group as well to try and bring in and upskill your group with that as well. This guide here, it doesn't just talk about what the executive function does. It also provides for you the key challenges that you're likely to face as the executive function. So this is things like concerns about transparency. So notoriously, AI is like a black box. It's very, very complex and it's hard to navigate where the outputs are. And also you aren't necessarily sure of what your workforce readiness is. And the guide really outlines key actions that you as the executive function can take in order to overcome these. So for instance, this might be things like if you're just getting started, using gap analyses and using organizational assessments to make sure that you've mapped your AI readiness. So the guide is really, really useful for getting you started at that point. Next is the operational function. Now, this takes up the bulk of the guide. It's covered in pages 14 to pages 21. And that's because these are the people that handle the real complexity, the real risk, and the people that really develop the processes as well. The type of people that this is going to be: your risk officers, IT, cybersecurity, legal. And their job in this role, what is their role to push this forward? Essentially, they're there to make sure that AI is implemented safely, ethically, and with clear accountability. Now, those all sound like quite fluffy words, but the guide actually grounds this into action and gives you pointers in order to do this. And the way it does this is it lays out your operational functions core responsibilities. So there's 4 core responsibilities which it details. And those are governance, assurance, data and technical, and people and culture. I'll dive a little bit into those and give you a bit of an overview. So in terms of governance that the operational function are going to need to put in place, this isn't just about paperwork. It's about getting clarity. So getting clarity on your processes, making sure that there's accountability in place. So who's going to be owning the models, who's owning the data, and how you're going to get those processes set up. It also then gives you some actual actions to put in place to be able to do this. So things like setting up a governance group, using racing models, and also aligning it with ITS America's AI principles, so using those kind of resources to help. Next is assurance. So what do we mean by assurance? So assurance is essentially ensuring that the system is safe and that it does what it claims. Now, the guide has grounded this in the NIST AI RMF framework. This is a really, really well-regarded model for AI and for risk management. But the guide goes beyond that. It gives you, again, those actions in order for you to be able to implement it. So it helps you to work out how you're going to map your risks and how you're going to evolve your assurance as it starts to scale. So it really gives you that detail throughout. Next, it talks about data and technical. As we all know, AI fails without solid data. We've all heard garbage in, garbage out. We need to have some good data processes in place. And the guide helps you to look at ways that you can audit your systems, ways that you can address these gaps, and ways that you can plan for DevOps and AI ops as well. And some really good example case studies in there. We're going to be hearing from Dara next, but it has a good case study from Caltrans data standardization project as well. So it's a real good reference point that you can lean on and you can look to. Next, it talks about people and culture. As we know, AI just won't work if we don't trust it or if we don't have the skills to put in place. Nobody's going to end up using it. So the guide shows you how to embed that trust. This is through your ethics, through building AI literacy across your organization, and also how to grow that responsible AI culture. Again, there's case studies in there. So from Texas DOT's AI user group, which is a really grounded case study that you can see how this has worked. So in short, the operational function really builds the environment where AI can work. And not only can it work, but it can work in a trusted, safe, secure way, which is exactly what we want. Then last but not least is the delivery function. This is on page 22 of the guide. These are the people that are actually implementing your AI. They're the team responsible for designing, testing, and scaling those AI tools across your whole system. The guide outlines that their focus should not only be on just delivering, but quickly, but also delivering it to make sure that it's safe, making sure that it's explainable and it's aligned to your strategy, and above all, grounded in real world constraints and your real world constraints in your organization. So to help with that, the guide breaks this down into 3 stages, which is the proof of concept stage, where you're just going to be doing small, low risk research focused tests. Then next is your pilots. Once it's tested in your proof of concept, you're going to test it in the real world. Is it working? Is it working to your business case? Are you able to assure it? Is your cost benefit analysis working? And then finally, scaling up. So looking at your requirements and, sorry, apologies. Looking at your requirements to scale up and looking at your metrics that you're getting back and making sure that that's working in practice. So the guide really walks the delivery function through those key areas and what to consider within those stages. So that's the who. The next stage is the how. So how are we implementing it? Well, at the heart of the guide is the AI maturity model. And this is introduced on page 8, but it's referred to throughout because the way that it's designed is it's designed to support you at no matter what stage you're at in the journey. You could just pick this up if you're at the deployment stage. You've already got it rolled out, but now you want to optimize it. You could pick it up at that point and it gives you real clear action points and challenges and indicators for it. And also, what else makes it really stand out is that it breaks it down into considerations and roles for each function. So rather than just saying the aspirational stage is just about vision, or this stage is about scaling, it also tells executives, operational teams, delivery teams what actions to take and what considerations to have, making it much easier to pick up and implement. So there's 5 stages in total, so I will walk through those with you now. So the first one is the aspirational stage. This is where you're at the start of the journey. You'll be exploring the possibilities, asking what problems we're trying to start, And at this point, a lot of this work is going to be taking place with the executive function, who will need to be defining the problem you're trying to answer with AI. You're going to be wanting to think about, where could AI add real value? What processes could we add it to? Operational teams at this point, they're going to be supporting the executive function. So looking at technical skills, looking at process readiness, and looking at people skills like AI literacy. For delivery teams, this is the stage you're going to be supporting the executive function as well with your technical knowledge, letting them know the type of AI that might be applicable and that might work. Next is the planning stage. So this is when you'll start to set the direction and start to test those ideas. So for executives, you're continuing to build that strategy and vision based upon the proof of concepts and the insights that you're getting. For operational teams, you're going to start to think about which teams you're going to be upskilling first and identifying your kind of hiring and contractual needs as well. And delivery, this is where you're starting to run your small proof of concept pilots. Next, you're on to building foundations. This is about actually building your systems. You're building them up and you're putting those processes in place to make the AI implementation an actual reality here. So for executives, this is the point where you're just starting to track the process and your KPIs. For operational teams, this is where your real heavy lifting is starting to begin as well, where you're starting your change management processes and you're looking at your AI policies and governance and assurance as well. For delivery teams, you're starting to test it as you roll it out into the real world. This is obviously it becomes very different once you go from proof of concept to real world rollout. So there's going to be lots of work in that space as well, which the guide lays out for you. Next is deployment. So AI is live here. Now you're starting to monitor it and you're learning from it. And you're starting to scale it up responsibly. So for executives, at this point, you're starting to work and review what's working and refine. So looking at your monitoring, learning, and how you're going to move forward. For operational teams, you're consolidating here, consolidating your governance processes, revising and improving skills, and your specific technology requirements. And for delivery, you're starting to integrate that IT and OT with keeping cybersecurity at its core, so making sure it's safe. Then finally, we're at level 5, which is optimization. So this is where AI really becomes part of the business as usual process. And you're also wanting to improve and to adapt. So as executives, you're going to probably start refreshing your strategy here, looking at other ways you can start to implement AI, looking at other processes and problems that you can use AI to address. For operational teams, you're driving that continuous improvement and revisiting skills, revisiting data sharing agreements and making sure they're all continuous and valid. And for delivery, you're going to be starting to establish your review cycles here, starting to monitor, starting to have your version control in place and starting to have your retraining as well. So I think this model is great. I've been working in AI assurance for a number of years now, and I think this is a real practical guide to be able to help to walk you through no matter what level you're at and no matter what stage you're at. So to wrap this up, I'm just going to point to the 10-point action plan because I'm aware of time here and that I can't go through it in full detail, but I really wanted to give a brief nod to it because I think it's such a useful tool. It's essentially your field guide. It's a real practical strategic tech list which will help you to stay focused on your AI implementation journey. I'd love to go through it in more detail on each point, but I'll leave that for you to have a look at. But I really recommend taking a look at this. Essentially, the core messages here are to have a clear strategy, to collaborate with others early, and to build with transparency. So everyone understands your stakeholders, your users, your teams. And these points, again, can be applied at any point in your journey. So thank you for your time. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour to the guide. I really encourage you to go and pick it up, to listen, to read it, and to really use it to help you to get started with your AI implementation journey. And just if this has sparked any ideas for you or any questions, we'd love to support you. So do reach out to ITS America or to Cambridge consultants, because we can offer things like workshops, tailored guidance, one-to-one conversations. And yes, I've really enjoyed doing this. And I will now pass over to Dara.
Right. Thank you, Rebecca. And yes, definitely we'll be following up. You presented a lot of great information, and it's really going to be hard to follow such a great presentation. So thank you for all of that information and for your leadership in developing this guide. Okay, so maybe I can take a few minutes to talk a little bit about a couple of use cases that we are testing in California related to the governor's executive order on generative AI. As well as sharing what we're doing at Caltrans to prepare for this new and exciting technology. Okay, so I'll start off with the use cases. Back in 2023, when the governor's executive order on generative AI was released, it called for not only all state government agencies to start thinking about and preparing for the onset of using these new generative AI tools, very visionary, but it also called out specifically the need to test this technology in what was called proof of concept projects or the sandbox environments. That same year, Governor Newsom selected 5 use cases for testing from state government submissions, only 5. Caltrans submitted 2 and had both of the proposed use cases selected. So we were very excited and glad to be in the forefront of testing some of this new technology in the state of California. The first project that I'm going to share with you today, it relates to reducing highway congestion. So this is our first use case. Accenture is leading the development of that project along with Microsoft, Moby, and Esri. So the initial problem that we were trying to solve related to better processing and interpreting these complex data sets to improve traffic pattern analysis, to address those bottlenecks, and to enhance overall traffic management. So it's the stuff that DOTs do every day, only now bigger, better, and faster with this new technology. The initial objective of this use case was to improve the processing and the interpretation of complex data sets. All of that would help enhance the traffic pattern analysis, address those bottlenecks, and optimize overall traffic management. So during the proof of concept phase, the GenAI tool utilized a vast amount of data that was authentic, well-recognized sources, and it analyzed potential transportation scenarios to develop solutions, including reducing traffic congestion, enhancing the incident response, and improving transit reliability. So that was the initial proof of concept phase. So we're in the second phase right now. And right now, the minimum viable product testing that we're doing is going to analyze real-time and historical data from our roadways to predict traffic bottlenecks, to detect incidents faster, and to identify locations for safety enhancements. So we are so very optimistic that this will empower Caltrans to improve mobility and to reduce traffic delays across the state. Okay, so that was our first use case. The second project, or our second use case, was related to protecting vulnerable road users. Deloitte is leading the development of this project along with Google and Carto. So in this use case, we were using generative AI to investigate near misses of injuries and fatalities, to identify risky areas, and to monitor interventions designed to increase the safety of our vulnerable road users. During the proof of concept phase, the tool, the GenAI tool, identified high collision locations and made recommendations for targeting safety improvements across the state highway system to proactively address road safety risks, especially, again, for our vulnerable road users. By analyzing new and additional data sets, including crash reports, roadway conditions, and equity indicators, generative AI has uncovered patterns, prioritized safety interventions, and delivered data-driven insights to help the department better protect all Californians on the road. So in the current phase, in the minimum viable product phase, this tool will be expanded upon and bring in additional data sets to help better identify and address locations in need of safety upgrades, which will be evaluated by Caltrans prior to taking any actions. So both of these projects were delivered through a new process, and it's the innovative procurement method, or RFI squared. And this method was faster, and it enabled us to test and iterate through a safe and secure proof of concept stage, which provided not only the state, but also the innovator community valuable insight into what worked, what didn't work, and it led to finding ways that technology could be improved upon. All right, so next I want to talk a little bit about some of the measures Caltrans is implementing internally to prepare for the introduction of the generative AI technology. The rollout of Gen AI, as we all know, is happening at a pace unlike anything that we've seen before. It's faster than the internet, it's faster than the rollout of smartphones or cloud computing. So it's kind of exhilarating, and it's also deeply unsettling at the same time. So organizations and state governments are really racing to harness this transformative technology and the potential that it has. At the same time, when we're grappling with the scale of change it demands. So from the data governance to workforce readiness to ethical use and operational disruption, all of those items that we talked about in the plan, and preparing for its onset isn't optional, it's urgent. So we recognized early on that one of the biggest challenges organizations face in integrating AI responsibly is data readiness, because data is the foundation of any AI system. And most organizations that we've found or we've talked to aren't necessarily starting with that solid data foundation, with that clean, complete, and well-organized data state. Rebecca said this, and I'm going to say it again. We all know that poor data quality leads to poor AI decisions. And I say it too, Rebecca, it's a garbage in, garbage out type of scenario when you don't have your data foundation in order. And investing in data readiness is not optional. I can't emphasize that enough. It's a total prerequisite for trustworthy, scalable, and ethical AI adoption. So as leaders, we really need to prioritize our data strategy and governance today to ensure AI's success tomorrow. In addition to being purposeful about elevating data at Caltrans and placing it alongside AI efforts, we have been taking other actions in the organization to prepare. And I'm just going to share with you briefly kind of what we're doing. So we have updated our internal policy. We have prepared a draft organizational structure document to discuss where this new CDAO role should live. We are working on solidifying a governance structure for data and AI, and we're getting ready to roll out an AI readiness assessment. So on the data side, we've been in this space a lot longer. We have rolled out a lot of enterprise data governance efforts, including a data catalog, which houses all of the authoritative data for the department, and where staff can go to find good data. We've developed data standards to make data usable and interoperable. We've developed data quality management plans to make sure data is a good fit for purpose, and created an enterprise data warehouse. So we've been managing data with a strong data governance model for quite a while. So we're trying to pair the two now. We also have a few projects lined up and that we either have started or will start working on soon, such as the development like TxDOT on an AI strategic plan, although I think we're going to do a data and AI strategic plan, a cloud strategy, a data pipeline, and a data and AI roadmap. So that's big picture what Caltrans has been doing and where we will be going down the line. I also want to mention that back in February of this year, California hosted an AI peer exchange where we invited 10 other state DOTs for a 2-day face-to-face meeting held in San Diego, in which we discussed topics like AI governance and strategy, workforce readiness and adoption, ethics, risk, and security, and finally, AI and data management. We produced a report that captured best practices and takeaways, and I'd be happy to share that if anyone wants to reach out to me after this meeting. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention how important it is to prepare the workforce for generative AI. As like Laura mentioned, the co-chair of ITSA America's Workforce Development Community of Practice, I know firsthand how critical it is to begin these conversations now. I would say that even before we invest in new emerging technologies, we can and should be focusing on workforce readiness. We can start by providing our workforce with tools and training and those policy and guardrails that we need are necessary in order to deploy these new magical technology tools, so that there's going to be a seamless onboarding experience. We know that it takes time sometimes to onboard new technology. It doesn't take time to roll out this training and start addressing one of our greatest assets, our people. So in closing, I just want to say that for AI to be deployed responsibly, we really must start preparing now, because without a strong foundation, innovation stalls and risks increase. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it over to Darran from TxDOT to talk about Texas's experience.
All right, thanks, Dara. And I guess I'll start with just saying ditto. I'm gonna have to really flex on what I talk about now. And thank you, ITS America, for inviting myself and Dara and Rebecca to contribute to this. I guess I'll start with saying that I've had the opportunity in the last week or so to really dive in and review the guide, the final version of it, and just very pleased with not only what it says, and I agree with basically all of it, but also that it complements what we've done here in TxDOT. So that gives me another azimuth check or validation that we're on the same path as many others, and that's always a feel good. I was asked to talk a little bit about our use cases, but before I get into it, I'll talk a little more about this strategy and our strategy and how we got there, and then and try and reiterate some of the things that Dara just covered. I think we've always had an innovative culture at TxDOT, and I think that's longstanding. Our current executive director has made it one of his 4 focus areas, so it's even more emphasized for the last several years. And in going back all the way to 2013, our legislature directed us to examine emerging technologies and their impact on transportation and then on our mission itself. And we've continued that as a technology task force. And one of the very first technologies that they were talking about and getting us to examine was the advent of AI. So I don't think it caught us off guard in its potential implications and its potential value and impact. But maybe we were a little bit off guard when all of a sudden ChatGPT became the buzz. And I think we thought maybe we had a few more years before it really started getting going, at least on the large language model side. But that gave us some further impetus, and we had already realized through some of that earlier discussion, the need to be prepared for it and to begin, and it's truly potential to make revolutionary changes in a lot of our operations in a tool that will, greatly change the way we address things. So we began in earnest. Prior to that, as Dara said, and I would say this started with cloud deployments and with a portfolio system of managing all of our engineering projects, the need for data governance across the entirety of the department, and all that means, all the layers of making sure that your data is good, that it's discoverable, and can be shared across the enterprise, that it's accurate, and that there's someone that owns that data and is responsible for it and is responsible for its provenance as well as its protection. All of those were kind of in place for us. I'm not saying we're at capability maturity level 5 in every area, but we had a good approach already, and so it was readily adaptable, and we certainly saw its impact as it relates to any kind of AI deployment, just like any kind of robotic process automation would need good data as well. Then we said, okay, well, we know generally what we expected and generally kind of what we want to do, but we probably need to put this into a strategy document, and that's really kind of what got it going. And we had recently hired our first data officer and had him be the champion of developing that document and working across the department with all of our divisions and districts to build up what they felt were important principles, what were the areas that we should focus on, and then certainly all the use cases that they could think of that where they felt initial implementations might help their respective roles. And so certainly addressing workforce, addressing the training that ties to that. I mentioned, the principles, but the safeguards that are needed is what really led us to those principles. So how do we ensure we're doing this safely led to our principles, starting with safety and accountability and accuracy and transparency, trustworthiness, and underpinned all with privacy and security, and laid those out as a part of our document. And that set the working foundation. It led us to the idea of what is the readiness state of the department, what's our technical capability, what's our personnel capability, what do we need to do in terms of education and preparedness, and then ultimately, then what would be the recommendations both from what else do we need to do on the data side, the technical architecture or hardened software capabilities, and then on the people side before we really started trying to run. And then working on a 3-year roadmap because we feel that the technology will really change quickly. What can we begin to do now? What's the low-hanging fruit capabilities? What are the, both from what is our readiness side, what's available to us now, what do we have the monies and the staff to address? What are we going to do? And so I was interested to see in the guiding document the idea of tying every use case and activity to strategic goals, which I do agree with. But I'd also say there are sometimes things that, yes, you can work them into strategic goals, but they might be low level. So I would give a good example of that is the automation of onboarding and offboarding of personnel, both for IT and our personnel actions. Yes, that ties to taking care of people and stewardship, which are 2 of our strategic goals, but they're very low level. But in terms of taking care of people and the workforce, a huge improvement. So there are certain implementations that are easy wins, may be easier to do initially to gain confidence in your process and your governance and all those kind of concerns. And then move on to the big swings, and I think that's kind of been our approach to date. And I'm looking forward. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the maturity model. I've got some thoughts on that. But shovel ready. In engineering terms, shovel ready projects maybe be a better way to put that. But we've tried to focus on 5 areas. Those being optimizing infrastructure, data-driven decision-making, certainly, as I mentioned, unlocking the workforce potential, and then enhancing overall stakeholder experience, both with the public and with all the entities that interact with us to achieve our mission. And then, again, underpinning that, ensuring security and privacy are done throughout those. And we looked at all of the use cases that we collected as either kind of on the ground operational, what is affecting the public in our daily, direct to the customers' missions, or what's a business side of activity. So anything that's HR or contracting, and all this. So we have a pretty nice 50-50 balance of use cases across those, and we've tried to develop in both areas. I mentioned the onboarding one. We've deployed Microsoft Copilot and are using that across our Microsoft suite. In our professional engineering procurement, we have a invoicing process now that it's checking all invoices that come in across all the contracts, and greatly, what took 60 hours sometimes to review an invoice against all the intricacies of a very detailed project can take minutes, and it's saving our staff a great amount of time on that they're rededicating to other activities within that division. Tied to that, engineers' estimates of costs is one that we're working on now. And those are examples of more administrative ones. Maybe the engineering ones are kind of on the dividing line. And then as you get into operations, a lot of our focus has been on traffic management activities, especially things like tying in our cameras across the entirety of a region and putting the automation behind that to detect incidents faster than, say, the traffic management staff potentially could do, unless they're looking at specifically at that camera, and then using that to begin to flag particular actions that can be taken, and then the decision making can be made on what actions need to be done relative to a given crash or incident. A lot of analytics on hotspots, on using traffic data over time, and what can we do to address crashes in a given region, be it design, be it enforcement, be it any other kind of application we might want to apply to that. And then finally, another, sign inventory and compliance across the entirety of the state, but being done with cameras and an AI backend to do those analytics and identify issues much more quickly in a given district or statewide, and begin to tie that into asset management and the ability to trigger orders for those that are already identified as insufficient and needing of replacement. So just some examples. And I think I'll stop there and let Laura take the reins and run us through questions.
Thanks, Darren. I'm coming back on video here. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dara. Thank you, Rebecca. So you guys gave some really good, interesting examples. I'll just note that there were some questions in the chat, which you may have already, or the Q&A that you may have already seen where people were asking for a little bit more information. So admittedly, Dara and Darren, you guys as states are further ahead than some others, right? California and Texas are pretty far ahead on their AI plans and implementations. So really interested to hear what specific challenges or bottlenecks have you experienced in AI adoption within your states, and what strategies have you used to help overcome those bottlenecks or challenges?
There you go first.
Thank you, Darren. That's a great question, Laura. So again, I'm going to start with one of the biggest challenges, like I mentioned, is data readiness. So we invested early on a strong enterprise data governance policies and structure, and continuing to emphasize that conversation and pair it with AI is really a strategy that we're working with. I've said I had data in my program for many years, and AI just came into our world not too long ago. And I was excited because I'm like, this is the train that we need to get on to elevate data and to like really sell how important it is that we can't do one without the other. So I know that we don't have a lot of time. I'll just say that was one of the challenges and strategies.
All right, tying into that, Dara mentioned, the idea of governance, and she mentioned maybe both data and AI governance. We already had two existing governance processes, an enterprise one that was for like any program that we wanted to initiate in the department that was, didn't exist prior to that. And we also have one for IT programs and projects as well. So we didn't really identify the need to have a fully separate AI and data governance process, but most all of those activities are being managed through one of those two mechanisms. But I think it's critical to have that. I think you have to control the rush to innovate. We had to quickly get a policy out about what AI could you have on your government computer, or could you access on your government computer, and explain why, if it was an external AI that you're basically giving data to the whole internet, and we may not want to expose some of that data. So getting on top of it quickly, getting at least policies in place and in the education to make sure that you've set the parameters before you begin to step forward. And then as I looked at your maturity model, I mean, it actually spurred me to think about, we're probably at the third level, maybe moving into the fourth in some areas, but we've reached a point of, after 6 months to a year of initial deployments in our strategy, it's time to kind of do a review and really get warm fuzzies at the executive level that everything's going well. And so I'm appreciative of that maturity model. I wish we had put one in our document, and so I'm jealous as well.
Well, Darran, maybe you can do an update, right? A
Yeah.
necessary update and add it in.
Yeah, level
Rebecca,
5.
I don't know if you have any comments on, I love your comment, Darran, by the way, about giving the executives the warm fuzzies. I think it's actually really it's really on point, right? Because I know, right, that the executives are like, right, you want to embrace this technology in a very responsible, strategic way. And you have a whole team that's doing that. And so that communications loop and that like education loop is really important. Rebecca, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Darran, you've really pulled up the key challenges that you tend to come across. A couple that I would add to that are particularly around integrating with existing systems. I think that's something that's really difficult and is often one of the challenges that we do come across. And we do refer to it in the guide about, again, talking about that piloting and scaling up those AI solutions and working through that maturity model to help you through.
Yeah. Okay, let me jump to a question on so for Dara and Darran first, where in your current data infrastructure or procurement setup is AI most likely to fall down? And how can you or how are you preparing for that? And Dara, I'm thinking about what you were talking about with your innovative procurement model or method, I should say, that you use for AI.
Yeah, let me just pull up a note real quick, Laura. That RFI model was a good process. It's a procurement process that we typically don't use a lot in government, and I think that we should, because it really expedited the way that we were able to contract. And I know that this is a popular topic in our community about being able to contract quicker and be more nimble. So that is one area that we could fall down. I will say that the governor did in California had a lot of vision for empowering state governments to be able to embrace this. In his executive order, he laid out a procurement process for state agencies to start adopting, which included a risk assessment process. But without the governor's vision in developing all of these new procurement processes and risk analysis and such, I think that we would have been a lot longer to fully integrate this technology. So, we're super thankful for that. I was going to also suggest that without full buy-in of an enterprise data governance strategy by all programs in the department. So you asked, where does the current data infrastructure fall down? I would say that you really need to have strong enterprise data governance policies and practices, but funding is that one area that could potentially impede development of strong policies and practices. In our case, we're such a large organization. We're almost 23,000 employees at this point. And funding has always been a challenge, not a surprise for government. But when we're talking to programs and asking them to make their data sets better and more authoritative, there's a large price tag that comes with that. So, those are conversations that we need to continue to iterate and make sure that people understand and programs understand that delaying investing in data is not an option, like I said.
Absolutely.
So I want to add on to that. The I have two thoughts on it. One, failure to understand the cost at scale. And what do I mean by that? You have to challenge your, as I talked about, controlling the rush to innovation. You also have to control the rush to have too many, how much AI is enough AI, and how many projects do we need to have all at once? And yeah, they're all great if you're doing pilots, but have you really done the thought process of, if the pilot's successful and everybody wants some, well, who is everybody, and how much is that going to cost, and how much is that going to scale across the state? And do we have not only the money, but the architecture, and again, the infrastructure and all that to handle that scale? And it's kind of hand in glove with buying a bunch of big data. I mean, how much big data you need to buy before it's repetitive and overlapping, things like that. So that was one thought, is making sure you understand the cost at scale and not just of the pilot itself. And then not only do you have to have the ability to handle that through data storage and architectures, but are your data storage and architecture capabilities ones that are acceptable to the state? As they establish their rules and regulations, are you in alignment with those, or did you get ahead of that and now you're going out and developing, buying, procuring, whatever, and you're about to find out you're not going to be able to use what you just got? So making sure you're matched to their offerings or to their rules, and staying attuned through state and national level agreement. And I think that kind of goes to, I think I saw another question come through that asked a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to go to, we only probably have time for like two more questions. So I want to go to the risk assessment concept real quickly. And Rebecca, I'll start with you, and Dara and Darren, you're welcome to jump in if you want to answer this too. But and this AI is evolving so fast. How is the risk assessment process keeping pace with AI development? I mean, is it? How is it? And then how can a deployer, right? How can someone like Darren or Dara, how can they manage that? Or do they have to assess the risk after they've deployed?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. It's a real challenge, and it's something that's so difficult with things evolving. One of the things I'm specializing in at the moment is to do with scalable oversight and scalable AI, and it's about this exact problem. And actually, there's lots and lots of good actions and grounding within the guide as well. So I think one of the key things is to have assigned dedicated individuals for this. So this is people that can oversee it. This will be kind of your operational function, and they're the people that are going to be there for overseeing those AI risk management strategies, pulling in the new changes, pulling in the new risks, and having a look at that. And also with your life cycle of your AI and with your risk management, you're going to have that evolving and constantly evolving throughout and keeping on checking throughout. And then there's lots of great frameworks out there for it as well. The one that I mentioned, the NIST AI RMF one, that's a really good one to ground yourself, to ground your company and your business in, as well as the ISO 42001, nice long name, which helps to kind of systemically map, measure, and mitigate those risks as well. But again, you've still got that evolving risk element, and you're still going to need to keep active with it. Unfortunately, just with these AI solutions, it is something that you've just got to keep on reviewing, keep on going over, and keep on monitoring on that as well. And then the point that you need to integrate that, I'd say integrate that at the pilot stage, right at the beginning, because this is something that you're going to have to be proactively doing, and you're going to have to keep on coming back to it. So if you can have a process in place to keep on looking at that and moderating that risk, then it's something that you can continue to do throughout.
Yeah, I will say, in a time where there's a lot of disagreement on a lot of things in this moment, the one thing that was supported by everybody virtually in the AI world is the NIST risk management framework. It is very, very, very broadly lauded and supported. So putting an extra plug in for that, if you are deploying AI, if you are working on a plan, make sure that you're taking a look at that risk management framework. Let's go to our last question only because we only have a couple of minutes left. And I think this is important for all the attendees. So for both Darran and Dara, if you're a state, an agency, a public agency of any type, just getting started, what is the very first step that you would take or recommend that others take as they begin this AI journey?
Well, I'll steal Dara's data governance. Um, I think that the guide laid it out fairly well. Get, executive buy-in, get guidance, set a vision, and then make sure you have the things in place that we talked about before, both from a data side to the infrastructure side. And I know you can't have that all overnight. So I guess I would quantify that with maybe you just focus on what is the one area you think you want to use AI on first, and make sure all those things are in place that could sustain that, and go from there.
I'll follow up with the first step that I would recommend is read the AI guide for implementation.
Love that.
Nice.
Oh, we have to say that, right? It is such a valuable document that is really going to help those DOTs that maybe aren't as mature. And then in addition to that, I'll just contribute in saying, in California, we started with a mandate, which is not a bad thing. And it was a strong vision from our governor, and it really helped get us to where we're at. The first step that I would recommend would be to get, like Darran said, leadership buy-in for elevating data in AI, because AI can't. So this is a message that I also say. So AI can be delivered and managed by someone who has the authority, like my role at a high level, but it's owned by the CEO. So that's a really strong statement that directors in Department of Transportations and companies really should be owning the AI strategies, and that's important. Next, I would recommend setting up governance structure, followed by establishing policy and guardrails and principles, and then get to your use cases. Where you can, those use cases should come after that good foundational structure is established. And looking back and thinking about the guide, I feel like we started with the delivery function before the operational and executive, but it all worked out.
Great. And Rebecca, do you have any suggestions, recommendations? You're on
Yeah,
mute.
so
Oh, there you
things
go.
like, sorry, I think I was having a bit of a problem there with my mute. So yeah, things like the early interventions and inclusive engagement as well. I think that kind of co-designing of workshops is really, really useful for that, and to be able to have those placements in place as well. But just really reflecting there what Dara and Darran were saying, I think there's some good implementation methods. And just referring to the guide, I think the guide is such a useful tool, and I'll keep coming back to that because it is something this is a place that I professionalize in, and this guide is a really, really useful tool for you to be able to come back to and to be able to support you through that and through that journey.
Thank you. So I really appreciate all of your contributions today. I found it very interesting to hear from all of you. Of course, I'm a huge proponent of the guide. So for everybody listening today, I have 3 takeaways, my 3-point action plan for you. Number 1 is read the guide. Number 2 is invest in data readiness. It is not optional. That is so critical. It is not optional. And then the third is prepare your workforce, right? Ensure that your workforce is ready for AI, is ready for these decision support systems, can use this, can see this as a tool that will augment their responsibilities and their roles. And I think if you focus on those 3 action points and then go to the guide, I think that will be very helpful. So I want to thank everybody. Please you're welcome to reach out to ITS America for more information if you want any support. And also, I hope that all of you will be joining us in August at our World Congress in Atlanta, where we will continue these discussions on everything intelligent transportation, including AI. So thank you all so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to seeing you on a webinar or in person again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.